mentors are very, very important, especially for people from like my background who, like my parents only have 6th grade education. Taking the time to encourage someone, it really does make a difference. And my life has changed because of that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Rosa DiDonato.
And I'm Marian Leary.
And you're listening to Amplify Nursing, a Penn nursing podcast supported by the Panola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Amplify Nursing features nurses who are leading the way in science, policy, and innovation.
Our guests defy stereotypes, define practice, and disrupt convention.
We highlight the breadth and depth of nursing influence on society by amplifying nurses who are pushing boundaries and breaking down barriers to build a new paradigm. This week on Amplify Nursing, we speak with Dr. Roxana Chicas. Currently a researcher at Emory University, Dr. Chicas focuses on the health of migrant farm workers. In this episode, she speaks candidly about her experiences as an immigrant in nursing, the importance of mentorship, and the profound effect nurses can have on the health and well-being of vulnerable populations.
So Roxana, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
Would you mind giving us an introduction? Can you tell us who you are and what you're up to?
So my name is Roxana Chicas. I'm a doctoral student at the School of Nursing at Emory University. My research focus is on looking at interventions to protect agricultural workers while they're working in the heat. As we know, heat is the number one weather killer, and many of our agricultural workers are suffering heat-related illness and have a higher rate of heat-related mortality than the general workforce. And so with climate change, things are just going to get worse unless we start implementing some type of adaptation cooling methods for them to be safe.
That's fantastic. So can you tell us, how did you get into nursing, and how do you think that nurses can contribute to helping with this problem?
Sure. So I got into nursing pretty late. I was 27, I believe, when I went to nursing school. And I went to nursing school because I was told by a pediatrician I could be a nurse. I came to the United States when I was 4 years old with my mother, much like many other immigrants who come here looking for a better life, job opportunities, a place where I could be safe. And so we came to the United States, made that long journey. I lived in Georgia 14 years. And then when I turned 18, I was granted TPS, which is temporary protected status, because previously I was undocumented.
Okay.
So being undocumented and then having some type of protection, I could notice the difference in, for example, access to health care. I witnessed how my community that was undocumented had lots of trouble accessing health care and having someone advocate for them. Oftentimes they didn't even know where to go, what to do. And so I ended up being somewhat like the community interpreter for several adults as a child and adolescent. And so, but I never thought that I could be a professional. I always just thought, I just need to get a really good job. And my parents would also encourage me, get a good job where your employer will love you. And so I started working at a restaurant, actually, and I hated it. And then one day, this was back when we had newspapers, I decided that I was just going to circle every ad that said bilingual needed, willing to train. So I ended up getting a job at a chiropractic office, and I worked there for 2 years. And I started seeing there, a lot of the construction workers, some agricultural workers who had previously worked in agriculture, who had lots of musculoskeletal issues. So that started intriguing me more, occupational health. And then I moved to a pediatric office and worked there for about 8 years and got to really ask lots of questions, and the doctors were always very encouraging. But I worked in insurance and billing, and so two of the pediatricians there were also nephrologists, so I ended up interpreting for the patients because we didn't have like a language line, we didn't have an official interpreter, and since these were children, sometimes like the children would be the interpreter. So I just started doing it, and I really enjoyed it. And then I noticed that when I would have to try to get, a prior authorization from the insurance company, they'd ask so many questions, and I found that I couldn't really advocate or get something approved because I didn't know, enough of like the pathophysiologies of diseases. So I would have to go ask the doctor, and I thought that I could become a medical assistant. And that's when one of the pediatricians in between patients saw me and stopped and asked me, he said, I hear you're going to go to school to be a medical assistant. Is that right? And so I was super happy because I was really proud. And I'm like, yes, because I hadn't gone to college all that time. Right. So he said, why would you go to school to be a medical assistant when you could be a nurse? And I thought, like, does he know he's talking to me, Roxana? And so what I said to him was, I felt like I needed to remind him. I'm like, Dr. Reisman, but nurses are very, very smart. And he said, yes, because they go to school and they study and they learn. And so it kind of just came out of me, and I said to him, you think that I could be a nurse? And he said, yes, just go to Georgia Perimeter College. They have an associate's degree there. And so I took that very literally. I only went to Georgia Perimeter College and applied there. And my dream was to become a charge nurse. That was it. Like, okay. I didn't really know much more. Like, I didn't know more about like the different pathways that there are in nursing of different like careers and areas. Right. I just knew like charge nurse. And I think that, witnessing my community's lack of access to healthcare, and also working in a pediatrician's office where I was using my bilingual skills to interpret and also like advocate with insurance companies, and then realizing that there was a gap there that I needed more knowledge, and really importantly, having someone that I admire tell me that I could be a nurse really just kind of like pushed me. And I like telling this story because I think mentors are very, very important, especially for, people from like my background who, like my parents only have 6th grade education. Taking the time to encourage someone, it really does make a difference. And my life has changed because of that. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to change or make a difference in the nursing field by, bringing more diversity, a different point of view, understanding my, the culture that I come from and the background. And I just think that, the more diverse nurses come, like the more powerful we'll be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the more diverse the perspective that we have, the greater range we have to tackle different problems and come up with better solutions. I never considered how difficult it is to deliver healthcare to people who don't speak the language until I actually went to another country on a medical mission, and you can't speak to anyone. And it's incredibly humbling, and it's incredibly difficult to try and engage with people in that, especially in the healthcare area, because it's so important that you have really accurate information, and the things getting lost in translation can be catastrophic.
Being a nurse, I think that we are, we spend more time with patients and we get to know them. And I think for me, it's always a wonderful experience to see how much we actually have in common, how much, we all just want to be healthy. Parents just want their children to be well, and like it just crosses borders and ethnicities and language barriers. Also, being able to empathize and with the patient, being able to be there during some really hard times that some families go through. I think shows you how human we are, which I feel like we currently kind of forget that we're all humans.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Marion and I have often discussed the importance of a human-centric approach to our patients and also the profession. So how, in your journey through nursing, I noticed that you focus on your strengths and where you can really fill a gap. How did you find coming into the nursing profession that you were received, coming from a completely different background than probably many of your peers?
Yeah, I would say overall, it's been a very positive experience. In my associate's degree, it was a very diverse group of students. And then when I came to Emory, it's much less diverse. But they're working to be more diverse. And so I remember the first day in class at Emory University, because I had my associate's degree and Emory recruited me to get my bachelor's. And I was the first day in class in this huge room, an auditorium, and I just see this sea of these young, Caucasian women, blonde hair, just blue eyes, they were talking about how they had gone to, Dubai for the winter break, or, all these exotic places that I couldn't go to because, I can't travel outside of the country. And then, and there I am sitting there, and I was actually pregnant. I was like six months pregnant, and I thought, and of course, the brown girl is the pregnant girl in class, and just feeling kind of out of place. And then, but for the most part, everybody seems to be warm and welcoming. I do think that once I got into the doctoral program, I could see gaps between my education and some of the other doctoral students. They just had, and maybe not education, but they just had it seemed more experience, or knew all this different terminology. I remember one of my assignments was to do an annotated bibliography, and I kept calling it anointed bibliography. An anointed. And so sometimes I think we just have to be vulnerable, especially first generation students and in a doctoral program. I have found that it's just easier for me to be vulnerable and this is what I know, and that's the only way that the professors are going to be able to teach me, or kind of tailor or the way that they teach me by knowing exactly what I don't know, instead of faking it. Just saying yes.
Right.
I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, it doesn't. It's cultural context, right? If you're talking about going to school with people who have, had a much different experience, they're more familiar with the academic terminology.
Right.
What would you say to other first generation students who are worried about going into programs?
I would say go for it and be honest, and so mentors and mentees, they each have a responsibility, and I feel that mentors' responsibility is partly getting to know their mentee, and again tailoring how they teach us, knowing what we need. But the only way that they'll know what we need is if we talk to them and tell them what we need. So, for example, the first time that I met with my mentor, who's the dean of the School of Nursing, the one thing that I constantly hear is in a doctoral program when you're applying, you get in, is like, "What's your question? What's your question?" And I didn't have a question. I just knew I wanted to do research with the Latino population. But some of my peers, they just seemed like so well put together, like they had a question, and I didn't. And so my mentor at the first meeting told me that she didn't expect me to have a question because that's something we were going to learn how to do, and that with time I would, develop a question. And so that really took a lot of the stress away. And then she asked me at the end of like my first year that I needed to start writing my proposal. And I told her, well, yeah, I'm happy to write a proposal, but I don't even know what that looks like. And she said, oh my, I'm going to have to hold your hand very tight. and so and so she did. And, I've won because at that time I had TPS status, I was barred from submitting like an F-31, any NIH funding. So I had to get funding through like all these small grants. So I got funded from like 4 different grants to do my my study. I would say to first generation college students and doctoral students to not worry too much about the future. That I feel like our job really is to just try to do our best every day so that when those opportunities come, or like we're ready to try to take advantage of them and like go for them. Because I didn't know, where this funding was going to come from. I just knew that I needed to write a proposal.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes the leap of faith is really just what you need to get you through those parts.
No, I was just going to say, and also, having time for family is very important.
Yes, definitely is, for sure. So what are your plans after you finish the PhD program? What is it that you want to do?
I would like to stay teaching. I'm planning on submitting for an F-32, which again, ignorance is kind of bliss because I'm actually writing my dissertation right now. Mm-hmm. And, the dean said, you should really try to get an F-32. I'm supposed to defend in March, April, and F-32s go in like April 8th. And I just say, yes, okay, I'll start working on it. And apparently today I found out that that's like insane to try to do both things at the same time. Like when you don't know, you just don't know. Like so I've already said yes, I've already committed, and right. I'm already taking steps to do it. So it's going to get done. And I plan on staying at Emory. I love teaching. I love doing research with agricultural workers. For me, like I feel like I stand on top of a lot of shoulders of immigrant workers who come here and who are often so marginalized. And, every day, every single day, every one of us who eats, right? Like every day, we all benefit from immigrant workers, from undocumented labor every time that we eat.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of people really think about that when they're eating. And I think it's right. important that, I give back to my community and also help push the nursing profession forward. That, I think oftentimes we try to be pigeonholed into one thing, what's expected. But I think nurses, see things very holistically, and this research allows me to do that. And I'm also very much interested in policy, how to, hopefully show some, have robust studies that can hopefully influence policy to try to improve the working conditions of agricultural workers, but also outside workers, many of whom, there are no heat protection, federal heat protection standards, and that's not good.
Right. So what would a federal heat protection standard look like? Like, what does that mean to people?
Yeah. So right now, people who work outside, like, for example, agricultural workers, there's no set rule that says, okay, so once the temperatures reach 85, workers need to take 10-minute breaks every hour. right? So workers are always, they don't take breaks. I mean, the studies are very clear that they don't take breaks. One, because sometimes there are no bathrooms, there's no porta potties available. Two, they make very little money, and if they're working by the piece rate, time really is money, so they push themselves to be able to pick as much as they can. Right. And so they'll push their bodies, even though it's very, very hot. Employers are not required to provide, basic things like water, shade. There's a huge campaign, a water, rest, shade, but it's just a campaign. It's just recommendations. It's not actual labor protections. And that's really needed with agricultural workers. And so, other things are personal cooling equipment, which is what my dissertation focuses on, and really having more accountability and enforcement for employers who violate, certain rules. I mean, I don't think having, a rule that says workers should have 10-minute breaks after a certain temperature is over the top. Right. I think it's something very basic that every human being needs, especially working outside. And I think that not having those protections in place kind of shows the lack of interest that we've had in protecting some of our most vulnerable populations, and how industry keeps winning at the cost of our health.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely an uphill battle for sure. So do you think that the profession of nursing has a responsibility to social justice causes such as these, and to help push regulations and policies like you're suggesting forward to help the workers?
Yes, absolutely. And I tell you, one of the things that I'm so excited about is to see Congresswoman Underwood, a nurse, that can really capture things that other, a lawyer or a businessman cannot capture, right? And when I've watched her kind of do some questioning, she does a phenomenal job, and it's because she's partly because she's a nurse. Mm-hmm. And can really advocate and can understand the science. And this, we can protect workers, we can give health care. We can do it. We just need to make the decision to do it. And I think nurses can really make that bridge and help push policies forward that will protect us all.
I agree. What do you think that nurses can do to get involved and help?
I really think that, for one, I think we need to start reaching out more into the community to promote nursing, because, especially for minorities, I don't think it's, I think we need to be more proactive, go into the community. I mean, that's one of the reasons I got into Emory and research, is because of a program called Bridge to the Baccalaureate that wanted to increase, the aim was to increase minority nursing students into nursing. And I think that's one thing. Secondly, really push forward or continue our education and start speaking up, not just at hospitals, but actually going out and voting and talking to the communities, meeting with legislators, really, playing an active part and being engaged with civil life, with, being aware of what's going on in our country. Mm-hmm. And I think that, doing research and really, thinking about how your research can really, how can you use your research to really push policy, not just doing research and moving on to the next, but how can it influence policy, and how can we get to the policymakers to start listening to us and being more visible? I think that's why I try to share my story, because you don't really see, many stories about nurses. And right. I think we're cool, and I think we need to start being more visible in public life and having journalists come to us to ask us, what our expert opinion is on certain issues.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's important that we, as a profession, put ourselves in the position to let people know that we're experts in things. I feel overall as a profession, we tend to sort of step back and let other people be the experts. And that's been to the detriment of the profession. But moving forward, I feel very inspired in what the nursing profession, what the nursing community is doing now. So, and I feel like the nursing as a profession is doing the things that you are, or at least moving in the direction of the things that you're talking about, of being the voice, of being the advocate, and of pushing forward. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us today. This was a fantastic conversation. We wish you a lot of luck on your dissertation, and thank you for taking the time out of putting together your dissertation and writing a grant to speak with us, because 30 minutes is a really long time when you have both of those things going on.
Yes, but it's fun. We all have to make time for things that are fun and fulfilling, and hopefully, someone will listen to this and maybe be inspired.
I'm sure they will. Well, thank you, Roxana. It was lovely to speak with you, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Hello, Marion.
Hey, Angela. How's it going?
It's amazing. So we just had a very inspiring conversation with Roxana Chicas, who is a doctoral student at Emory University. She is a first-generation immigrant doctoral student, which is a really important and very powerful part of her story.
Yeah, totally. She embodies the exact reason why we need to encourage and increase diversity, not only in nursing, but in all professions. People bring this wealth of experience that most of us can't even imagine. And the amount of persistence and humbleness and humility it takes to be a first-generation immigrant student going into these universities, like she was saying, being the only brown student in the class, and then being pregnant on top of it and feeling out of place is not okay. And the more that nursing students can see themselves represented in this profession at all levels, the better this profession will be.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. The amount of change that we could make with the knowledge that comes from these different groups of people who don't typically have a voice. And we have the perfect platform to help with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I hope everybody who listened to this is as inspired as we are and really thinks about this when they're looking at student applications at all levels and encouraging your colleagues to do the same thing, to really enhance the diversity and representation of who we're admitting into nursing schools, who we're giving positions to, and who we're promoting at all levels.
Amplify Nursing is hosted by Dr. Angela Rosa DiDonato and Marion Leary, and produced by the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing, with special thanks to our Department of Information Technology Services for their assistance. Music for the podcast was created by Harper Leary. The podcast is made possible by the Krista and Rich Pinola Fund for Innovation in Nursing.
Follow us on Twitter at Penn Nursing. Until next time, keep pushing over, under, around, and through. We want to thank you for listening to the Amplify Nursing podcast and remind you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcast listening. And if you can, please do us a solid and rate and review us as well. It will go a long way in amplifying our episodes.